All right, welcome everyone back to episode 5 of the Process of Fat Loss podcast. I'm Nick. I'm here at GCP with Trevor, and today we're going to tackle a little bit more of a kind of controversial topic. We're going to ask the question of if fruits are better than vegetables for fat loss or just in general. So, are fruits better than vegetables? I don't want to get too far into it here off of the front, but we're going to look at some factors that influence why you would maybe choose fruits over vegetables. But first, we're going to kind of take a step back and look at the base for our discussion, so we kind of frame it, so give you a little bit of perspective here. So the first thing we're going to talk about is it's important to understand what makes them different, but the one thing to think about is micronutrients. So can you explain exactly what micronutrients are and kind of how they impact that choice between fruits or vegetables there?
Of course. I think the first thing I have to come on the disclaimer is the fact that I'm not saying not eat your vegetables. That's not what this conversation is. And I think people want to take that sometimes like it's dogmatic, and it's not. It's not black or white. It's definitely that area of gray. But I do think we truly believe that fruits have more benefits than vegetables, and that's what I'm going to kind of explain here. I do think both of them have a ton of micronutrients. So let's first understand what micronutrients are so that we know what we're talking about in this conversation. So micronutrients are your vitamins and minerals, such as A, D, E, K, minerals like iodine, potassium, sodium, fat-soluble vitamins. Then there's water-soluble vitamins. So there's a lot of things that are talking about in this category. But most people focus more on that macronutrient, the fats, carbs, and proteins for fat loss. But I think the more important thing that people should be focusing is on the micronutrient part. Because the macronutrients, I think it's easier for people to count, to understand. But what it comes down to, the true building blocks of the whole body are the little micronutrients. And if we focus on the little micronutrients, they give, and those are all 100% full, which means at a capacity of what you're supposed to have for those, then you will be a healthier individual. And who honestly cares if it comes out to be like the macros are this much and the macros are that, as long as you're getting the full fulfillment of those minerals, we'll normally see that a person gets healthier. Because a lot of people's long-term diseases, like these long-term diseases we're dealing with, like rheumatoid arthritis and psoriasis, in terms of gut health. A lot of this stuff comes because people don't have the right total amount of minerals and vitamins in their diet to be efficient so the body can actually utilize and go through the processes it's supposed to go through. Again, we're talking about the micronutrients. So we need to make sure that our body has a certain amount of these they need to function for weight loss, right? When our body has all the nutrients it can, the mitochondria of the cell can function fully and can burn more calories at a more efficient rate. And that's what a lot of this conversation is going to come back to. How do I get, in the perfect human diet, how do I get the most micronutrients as possible? And I think that's where my fruits versus vegetables conversation really starts.
All right. So thanks for giving that kind of basis for our discussion. And now that we have that kind of basis, let's start to kind of compare fruits and vegetables. I know you said that they both have a lot of micronutrients, and you're not saying we shouldn't eat vegetables. But what would be the difference between why we would choose vegetables more so than we would want to choose fruits? What makes them better, or what makes fruits better than choosing vegetables?
So there's two perspectives you can come from on this. I'm going to start with an altruistic idea here, or really a religious base to begin with. Us at GCP, we're very strong in our faith. And so one of the things I always come back to is God designed things in a proper way. And so my first component to this is he made it hard for us to take vegetables and to eat them, but he made it really easy for us to take fruits and eat them. So on a simple basic side, you can agree or disagree, I don't really care about that. But it's this idea, that's where my first brain always comes back to what is the ancestral way of eating and why was it created this way? And so you look at fruits, so ripe, so ready for you to eat, right? You can take it right off the fruit and have it. Whereas with vegetables, you have to do a lot of work to make it edible. So there's a first component. We won't go deep dive into that. That's I don't want to go into a religious debate, but that's really where my first thought process on all these things come from. Then I can go more into the science part of it. So vegetables have toxins in them. They're called phytotoxins. I mean, it's a known fact that they're meant for the plants to protect themselves. They are trying to protect themselves from all animals. So this is their way, because they're at an easier area to grab, right? Usually most plants are on the ground. They're easier for people to grab, for animals to get, whereas a fruit is sometimes up higher on a tree, a little bit harder for animals to get a hold of. Not always true, but that's a different way to think about it, how plants they need to protect themselves a little bit more than the fruits do, the vegetables do. So you have these phytotoxins in the body. So there's many different debates out there. Are phytotoxins good or bad? But there's not much that can prove to me that the phytotoxins are good, because these are things that are causing issues throughout our body. So the plant creates these toxins, protects us from being eaten. Yes, we can break these toxins down through cooking of the plants to really deeply break them down. But through this process, you can't guarantee the toxins have been broken down. So like that's like extremely cooking. Like if you can boil them for a couple days in like a soup, you'll usually get a good toxic breakdown. You can ferment foods. That helps out a lot. You can make them more digestible by fermenting foods. But a lot of people don't cook them long enough. Like just cook them in the oven is not usually a long enough period of time to actually break them down to make it so they're so soft that your body can actually digest the stuff inside of them. Also, during this intense cooking process, a lot of vegetables lose their nutrients, and that's the real reason we're eating the vegetables, to get the micronutrients, but we're losing a lot of nutrients during the cooking process. So if the vegetable gets broken down well, the toxins will get absorbed in the gut. If the vegetables don't get broken down well, they will get absorbed in the gut. So most people probably heard by now of leaky gut syndrome. And so a lot of leaky gut syndrome comes down from like free radical toxins in the body. They can come from PUFAs. They come from plants as well as another place they come from. They come from lectins from beans. But what they do is that it's a toxin that's in our body can absorb, and now that's going and trying to pass through our gut, in our gut, our lining of our gut. It's passing through that into the body and creating these free radicals. So that's another way our body's getting these free radicals in the system, is because it can't break down those vegetables. This leads to another type of issue with leaky gut issues. As for fruits, you can absorb the micronutrients from them much easier because there's little to no toxins in the fruit. There are some oxalates on the seeds. So like I don't always recommend eating all the seeds, but that's a whole nother conversation. I don't want to get into oxalates. But most of the fruit itself is really easy for the body to absorb the nutrients from. It actually uses your sugars. It actually uses fructose to help get the body the nutrients to the body faster and into the cells of the body much quicker. So it actually uses fructose to its advantage. They say 95% of, so an example would be you absorb 95% of a fruit from a pear, whereas maybe only 45% of a piece of broccoli, right? So like there's just more of nutrient absorption from the fruit than you would take from the vegetable. And if we're thinking about this truly on micronutrients, we're looking more for the total absorption of micronutrients out of the two.
Yeah. So kind of going from the opposite perspective here, one thing that I've heard a lot from people that are in the gym or just people in general is that fruits have a lot of sugar in them. And generally people will use it as a reason to not want to eat fruits, a lot of sugar, trying to kind of avoid that. So is that something that we should be worried about when we're looking to eat more fruits, or is that something that's not really that big of a concern?
I would say for the average person, it's not a big concern. There's always those extremes. We're in that diabetic category, and I don't really want to go. That's more out of the scope of this conversation. But like in terms of that, for the average person that's in a relatively decent health, fruits are going to be actually really good for you, and you don't have to worry about the sugar at all. So there's two components that you have to think about when it comes to sugar. So fruit has fiber in it, just like vegetables do. And so some of the sugars actually attach to the fiber because the fiber is non-digestible, right? So it means it's going through the system, it's pushing through the system and down into the colon. And it's the body's, it's kind of like nature's way of helping you clean yourself out. So in terms of that, the fruit has fiber. And so the fiber attaches some of the sugar to it and helps push it right through the system. So not all the sugar is absorbed. That's the first part. Some of the sugar then, or the rest of the sugar really, goes through the liver. So fructose is like the main type of sugar is the type of sugar that fruit has, right? So fructose goes through the liver and improves insulin sensitivity. So when we think about fat loss, one of the most important things we can be is insulin sensitive. It's kind of a weird conversation because the terms are a little bit weird, but like insulin sensitive versus insulin resistant. So insulin resistant means that you can't really, when you have insulin going crazy in the body, your body can't do much about it. So most people that are insulin resistant are more on that like metabolic disease. They're in type 2 diabetes. They're like they have hypertension. They're what's called metabolic syndrome. So they're insulin resistant. I think more people are insulin resistant than they realize. They just haven't hit the final markers to hit in one of those categories, but they're pretty close to insulin resistant. But we want to become insulin sensitive. That means our body can actually utilize carbohydrates and use them in our system to create ATP. When we're insulin resistant, we can't create ATP as easily, or we have a bunch of like craziness going on. And I think insulin should be a conversation for another day. But we do need, so it helps improve insulin sensitivity, which is a good thing. And then it also helps burn glucose, which glucose is another way for us to burn fat, right? Not fat, sorry, to burn sugar. So it helps with glucose burning. Remember, insulin raises when glucose is high. If the cells are quickly and easily absorbing glucose out of the blood, then the insulin will not need to rise. So the idea there is fructose doesn't rise insulin as high as other sugars do. So it doesn't have to throw all this insulin in the system to pull out the extra sugars. So fructose itself doesn't increase the insulin levels, which actually makes it easier for us not to have insulin issues, which means that we don't usually put on body fat because our body utilizes all those sugars instead of turning them into blood fat, which puts them into our cells.
All right, so now we kind of have the basis of why fruits are valuable, a little bit about why maybe eating vegetables could be have negative impacts on our body. And I know you mentioned this a little before. You said we shouldn't completely get rid of vegetables. I know you said that they can have some value. But what are some reasons that maybe we should eat vegetables, or some specific things that some benefits that they could have for us?
I do believe there are reasons that we leave specific vegetables out of our diet, but I don't think they need to be completely left out of our diet. And so certain ones are extremely toxic to our body. So I would say kale is pretty toxic to our body, really not needed. Broccoli or cruciferous vegetables, which is a hard word to say, I'm only going to say it once, they're a little bit more toxic to the body because they're not broken down very easily, and people don't cook them to the rate that they need to be. So those would be some things I would keep out. Depends on what category you put beans in. Beans are legumes, right? I think that's a category, that's not a vegetable, but some people lump it in because it's a carbohydrate. Definitely not beans. And I think we'll have a conversation just about beans in general down the road, but like keeping those out. But I think a lot of other vegetables can be put into your diet, right? So carrots are pretty absorbable. It really comes down to being the foods that you can cook the best, right?
Yeah.
And things that people think are vegetables are actually fruits, like avocado is a fruit. Tomato is a fruit. So these are things that aren't really vegetables. They are actually fruits. So in terms of that, so vegetables like tubers can be in your diet as well. So that's like potatoes, sweet potatoes, white potatoes, sweet potatoes, things of that nature can be in your diet because they're easily digestible. But again, if they're cooked to the right thing, you don't want to just eat a potato straight off your mouth. You have to cook that to a proper position. So I do think that you don't need to eliminate all vegetables. I do think they can be a portion of your diet. I just think they don't need to outdo. So the idea used to be you would eat, 5 servings of vegetables and 2 servings of fruit. I think it's more maybe 3 servings of fruit and 2 servings of vegetables, right? Where you have a little bit more fruit than vegetables. And you don't need to have nearly as much of both of them as you do need to have a protein, right? So that's in terms of that. I just think that they do need to be can be part of the diet. They don't have to be, though. There's also another conversation. Do you have to have vegetables? I don't 100% think you have to have vegetables, but there are certain ones that you can go through and put in your diet. Now, that doesn't mean go out and just eat all the fruit you want. If you're not having vegetables, you probably need to eat more protein, and then that will change how your body deals with those sugars. But I don't think all vegetables need to be eliminated from the diet.
All right, so now we know fruits are good, vegetables are okay to have in our diet. What are some ways that we can kind of put this into our life? What's some easy steps we can take to incorporate more fruits, maybe how to eat vegetables well, or just incorporate the increased eating of fruits in our diet?
Yeah, I think a lot of that I talked about in that eliminating vegetables. You're just changing the concept of what we're eating. So, fruits are not bad for you. I think that's the most important takeaway. People demonize fruit, but they'll eat bread. And it's well, hang on a second. Bread's bad for you. There's no nutrient value to bread. But you're okay with putting that in there, but you're saying I can't have the sugar from fruit? Just so you know, all glucose turns into sugar, or all carbohydrates turns into glucose, which is sugar. So every single carbohydrate you eat turns into glucose. So when we're worried about just fructose, when our whole body turns everything into sugar, that's kind of ass backwards, right? Everything's turning into sugar. So regardless of that, that's how our body functions. So having fructose, which is a natural sugar, is not a negative. So quit acting like it is. Sugar can be really bad for you. Don't get me wrong. That's artificial sugars, though, right? Artificial sugars can be really bad for you. But once you start to help and get your body more to insulin sensitive, you can actually use those sugars that are created by the body, or created by nature, in a much more positive way. And another thing to remember, vegetables do have toxins, so just make sure you're thoroughly cooking them and make sure that you can absorb those things. Stick to fermented foods and cooking vegetables through a thorough process as much as you can.
Those are some great steps. Like I said, it's a little bit of a controversial topic to kind of discuss here. Saying fruits are more important, but what is there anywhere that our listeners can go to kind of get a little more information about it if they want to kind of look at it a little more, or kind of find out why vegetables might not be the best thing. Anywhere that they could go to get a little more information on that.
Yeah, I think my favorite articles usually come from UMZU on this. So UMZU, UMZO. They talk a lot about how fruits are positive for the body and with the benefits of sugar and how the sugar from it is not a negative. So I think that would be my first starting point. There's a lot of people that are on this boat and have been talking about it in recent time. I think another person that talks about it a lot is Dr. Sal Paudino. He's pretty good on that, and so is Stan Efferding talks about it too. So there's some positive people out there that I think are in the right thing. But UMS is where I usually go find some of the best articles from that. And they're just very aware and help you understand why certain foods can be toxic and why we should keep certain ones out of our diet and what proper ones we should put in our diet.
Thanks for kind of explaining that difference a little more and why fruits could be very valuable for our diet. For you guys listening, we will have what we talked about today in a blog post, so you'll be able to read it, go back and reference it. And then we'll also have the article that we just mentioned, so you can look at that and dive a little bit deeper in some of the people that we just talked about there. But thanks for listening, everyone. We enjoyed being able to share with you a little bit about this topic. Hope that you will join us next week. Everybody have a great day.
All right, have a good day, guys.